In this video, I will be showing you how to create the upper left guide block. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using this base plate file that we ended up creating, and we're actually going to create our guide blocks by using this geometry that we have in here, or this sketch geometry. What we're going to want to do is, first starting off, we want to duplicate this. And what we're going to end up putting in here is we're going to rename this, and we're going to go guide blocks is what we're going to put down on here, so guide blocks. What we're going to do is we're going to start by going into the sketch. And so I'm going to select that top of this extrusion here. So it's going to be face of extrude 1 for me. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually create the guide blocks themselves. So if I pop into here, I'm going to show you this. This is basically what it's going to look like at the end. That's how we're going to do this. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we can see. Now, whenever we are in this sketch, what we can end up doing is we can use the project convert tool, and what that will do is it's basically going to take this circle that we have right here and create it on our sketch. So if I end up hiding this, you can now see that that circle is actually on my sketch. Now the reason for that, why we're using this, is because these holes, we want to have these same holes on our 3D printed parts. And so now if I click on all of these circles, you can see that they show up and they render in there. Well, what I want to do now is I want to go and specify this rectangle piece that we're going to have here. And so now I can throw in some dimensions here. Now, the very, very bottom of this, we're going to end up having this be a 1.750 by 1.750 square. And so what I can do now is I can end up extruding this by a certain distance. Now the extrusion distance, or the depth of that, is going to be 0.375 inches, 0.375 inches. So that's going to connect to up here. So now what we also want to ensure is that we are not adding to this part. We want to create a new part. This is going to ensure that we have part 2 created, which is going to be the upper left guide block. So what we can do is we can come over here, rename this, and I'm going to rename this upper left. Now this is upper left because in our front view orientation, this is on the upper left side. Now what we want to do next is we want to create a sketch on top of this. So I'm going to create a new sketch, and then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use that corner rectangle tool again. Now I'm going to go ahead and drag it out to here. Now I can specify this new square that we're going to have. So this new square is going to be 1.875 by 1.875, right? And then so now what I can do is I can end up extruding this a certain distance as well. And now that extrusion depth is going to be basically 0.750 minus 0.375. And so if we end up calculating that out, we can end up determining what that is. And we'll end up having that depth. Now, one thing that I do want to end up mentioning on here is, do we still have those circles in there, or those holes? We do not. And so what I can do again is I can end up using the use project convert, and we can click on these circles, because what we want to ensure for this part is that we do have those holes still in there, because they are through holes through this material. Okay, now one of the things that we want to end up checking out is in terms of how this is set up. We want to determine, okay, well, isn't there supposed to be, for the pin slider, there's supposed to be a little filleted edge on there? So that is the case that we do have the filleted edge. And so what I'm going to do is we can go back to our base plate, or the guide blocks, and now we can see from this bottom part, this is where we want to have that filleted edge. So let's go ahead and let's go back into here. And what I can do is in my guide blocks file, I can end up clicking on this. We can end up applying the fillet. Now this needs to be 0.25 inches, so 1/4 of an inch in terms of that fillet. Now, what we also want to end up doing is not allowing edge overflow there. We do not want to allow edge overflow, and so we're going to end up setting that up. And so now we've got it where it is the case that we do have that created correctly. So last thing that we want to end up doing here is we do need to add in the counterbore holes. You want to ensure that these counterbore holes are concentric with those current holes that we already have in there. That means they share the same center point. What we're additionally going to do here is subtract those counterbore tops. And so the depth of that should be 0.19 inches. But as you can see now, we have that side profile for the screw slider as well as the pin slider. Ensure that your parts are always named. And that is the final part. Remember, like, comment, subscribe. Hit me with any questions in the comments. Bye-bye.